Alright guys, welcome to Next Gen Rugger. So obviously as the topic suggests, we're going to be talking about the World Schools Festival and the stories so far. Basically all the various information I've been collecting. Now, I've basically been back in South Africa for a bit. It's my first time in nearly a decade. I've been spending an extended amount of time in the country. I'm in the process of developing a new product that will basically service the rugby industry. And I've had meetings with various stakeholders in the industry, such as agents, scouts, officials, and coaches. And I would have to say it's been very interesting to say the least. I've met some good people, I've met some questionable people, but overall, I'm very positive about the future of rugby in the country. And I think the right custodians are sort of in place. Particularly around amongst the agents, guys. There's some really good guys out there that are really looking out for the players' best interest, much more than you'd read about in the press. Now, since the festival started in 2018, I mean, the comment section and the emails I've received have been very similar in scope. So you could basically call it a frequently asked questions section. So what I'm going to try and do is answer these based on the conversations that I had with people in the industry. And what I need you guys to remember as well, this is not a first-hand account. This is not from any sources that have first-hand experience dealing with the World Schools Festival and the various stakeholders and all the rest of it. So don't hold me to it. I can't say with 100% certainty that everything is the complete truth, but I'm fairly confident most of it is pretty accurate. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to finally look at the confirmed South African and rest of the world teams for the festival so far. So, the first thing that a lot of people have asked is who came up with the idea. Now, from what I've been told, it was Heineke Meyer. And what happened was that Heineke Meyer was an employee of Carinat Sports Marketing. And he was the one that apparently conceived the whole idea. Then what happened was that John Phelps, who's the company CEO of Carinat Sports Marketing, these are the guys that actually organize the World Schools Festival. Now, he was pursuing a deal to purchase a local Currie Cup team, and the whole purpose of that was to give exposure to some Pacific players on the Carinat books. The whole idea was that you would hold a festival at the stadium of the newly acquired team. I don't have first-hand knowledge of who that team was, but let's say, for example, it was Boland. The World Schools Festival would have been held at the Boland Stadium, for example. That was the plan. But that is sort of when Sean Erasmus from PAARL Boys apparently got on the phone and contacted these guys. So the next question, obviously, that ties into this is what was PAARL Boys' role in the World Schools Festival? So from what I understand is that Sean Erasmus got wind of the idea and he arranged a meeting with the team from Carinat. Now, the whole idea of this was obviously to hold the festival at PAARL Boys. Now, as you'll know, I think it was in 2017, PAARL Boys toured New Zealand and played some high-level Kiwi schools. I think obviously he was very interested in sort of reigniting that rivalry, maybe even get revenge on Christchurch Boys for the shock loss they had the year before. Who knows what the motivations were. But yeah, they were very interested to hold the festival essentially. Then what happened was that Carinat agreed that it was a good idea, but they wanted PAARL Boys to agree to a 3-year deal. PAARL Boys did not agree to a 3-year deal. They thought it was a bit risky, so they agreed to a 1-year deal with an option to extend by 2 years. So, why did the festival move in 2019? So, apparently Carinat wanted a bigger facility for the festival. I mean, I think that's pretty much an open secret. But PAARL Boys apparently wanted to exercise their 2-year extension option. So what happened is that the contract stated that both parties had to agree. Now, apparently there were some disagreements between the two parties on the first day of the festival as well. Rumor has it, and remember these aren't first-hand accounts, rumor has it that after the first day there were some cricket scores and the PAARL Boys organizers were really not happy with the outcome and they didn't want anything to do with the festival. Then when Hartbury beat AFFIES, then apparently they were warming to the idea, but more so I think there was some sort of disagreements between Carinat and PAARL Boys at the initial festival, at the inaugural festival. Karen had sort of then decided it would be best for the festival to move to a new venue, and from what I understand, the plan is to change venues each and every year. So, why did PAARL Boys not attend in 2019? Now, it's been said that PAARL Boys wish to organize their own international festival. Again, guys, I stress this is second-hand information, so I can't confirm with 100% certainty. Now, one of the schools who agreed to join the new festival was Boland Landbou. And what happened to then was that Carrinet actually had filled 9 out of the 10 slots for the 2020 edition, meaning there was only one place left. So when PAARL Boys' new festival fell through, Boland Landbou as well as PAARL Boys both expressed interest in going to the 2019 event. And due to misunderstandings, there's only one place left, and there are 2 teams. PAARL Boys did do the honourable thing, and they gave their place to Boland Landbou for the 2019 festival. Now, another section that I always hear about is regarding the South African schools invitations, and it's often the case. I mean, there's always a question, why isn't there a school from the Eastern Cape, or why has school X not been invited? So my sources tell me that Carrinet actually have nothing to do with the South African team invitations, and that the host school is completely responsible for the invitations. Now, many local schools do get invited, but a lot of them have other commitments in the forms of other festivals, and I mean, we'll get to that a bit later in this video. And then you got the rest of the world invitations, people really interested to see how that works. Now, Carrinet is indeed responsible for this. But the sources say that they've spoken to a lot of top schools from around the globe, but there's a lot of concerns about the safety of the pupils in South Africa. Now, we know South Africa has got a bit of a crime problem. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. But I don't think in terms of sports tours and all the rest of it, it's much of an issue. I mean, if you take a look at the sheer numbers of schools that do their sports tours here, schools from England, Wales, Scotland, or wherever, there hasn't been much incident. So I think this is a bit of a moot point, so to speak. Other issue is that the Northern Hemisphere top schools will be missing numerous international players, which means it's just not feasible for them. And another thing is that many schools, they have to allocate funding. So if you take a look at Napier Boys, for example, they can't fund rugby every year. So what happens essentially is that if they fund a rugby tour, that means there can't be a cricket or hockey tour. So obviously that's a bit unfair, to the other sporting codes. And I mean, that's what school's essentially about. It's not just about rugby. I mean, even though, we follow rugby very closely, that's what we care about. It's about what's good for the students, right? So you don't want to deny a kid that's a hockey player an opportunity to tour another country because everything's been allocated to the rugby players. So you can understand this. And the other thing is that top schools have their local competitions to worry about. And there's a big concern about risking an injury to key player, which could mean the difference between winning the local competition or losing out. In South Africa, we don't have a national tournament. We never had a full-on national tournament. That's going to change very soon with Carl Fabian and his idea for a schools festival, like a national championship. I'm sure that you guys have read about this in the press quite a lot. So that will be changing, but generally speaking, we don't have this issue to worry about. Whereas you take a look at New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, they all have competitions dating back decades, if not a century, for example. So I think they're more inclined to want to perform well in those sort of festivals rather than, risk burnout, fatigue, or injury in what is essentially a friendly school festival. So the future of the festival. Apparently, Carrinet are in this for the very long term. They got a lot of plans for the future. It's going to be staying in South Africa for the foreseeable future because, let's be honest, guys, it's the biggest market in the world, so there's no point in moving. Now, I know it's popular in other countries, but it's not South Africa popular. South Africa popular 10, 15, 20,000 people at a game. I mean, in England, if you can muster 1,000 or 2,000, it's probably a hell of a lot, for example. And then there's also an anticipation that the quality of schools will improve from an international perspective. Apparently, there are talks in some, really big name schools coming forward in the future. And, a lot of the guys that I've spoken to said that in the next 5 years, there's no doubt that this will overtake Sanex in terms of prestige. So, yeah, things are looking interesting. So let's move on to the AFFIES 2020. Now that the politics is out of the way, let's just get on to the rugby. The festival's moved to AFFIES. They're celebrating their centenary this year, and it's a move away from the Western Cape, so it's also going to offer different conditions in terms of the climate and the altitude and all the rest of it. And so far, all 10 South African teams have been confirmed, and 7 rest of the world teams had been confirmed, but I've just managed to squeak in 2 more, so there's 9 teams confirmed right now at the moment, actually. And once all the teams have been announced, what I'll do is I'll do a full analysis on all of the teams. So, the teams for the World Schools Festival 2020. South Africa, we have AFFIES returning. Third time they're returning. They're going to be hosts, obviously. Then Grey College, they'll be coming back for their third time. Sax, this will be their second time. You can remember they were there last year and they're coming back this year. Then Monas will be coming back the third time. Hilton will be coming back, I believe, the third time. Porus second time. Oakdale Lundbo the second time. They weren't there last year. They were at the inaugural competition. And then we got debuts from Pretoria Boys, Maritzburg College, and Kes. Then in terms of the rest of the world, we have King's College from New Zealand. So great to have an Auckland school at the festival finally. King's College are no joke. Extremely strong rugby school and a hell of a lot of history. There's no doubt they're going to be playing Grey College at this festival. There's no doubt that's going to happen, and that's going to be an absolute humdinger. That's their first time at the festival, like I mentioned. And then Hartbury College from England, this is their third time. Obviously, they will be missing quite a few internationals due to the under-18 Six Nations, but still, Hartbury is essentially a rugby academy, guys. It's not even really a school. So, they'll be strong no matter what. The AP Dragons, they'll be coming through. Some great young talent from New Zealand and some South Africans also in the mix over there. Then another school I'm very excited about, RKS from Fiji. They were the Sanex World Champions in 2018. They managed to beat Framsby in quite a close encounter, but in the final they beat Hastings, one of the top schools in New Zealand, 35-5. So this school is no joke. Don't let the fact that they're from Fiji fool you and lull you into a false sense of security. They are extremely strong. Then Georgia under 18 will be making their debut. That's their national team, as well as Uruguay. The under 18 team will be coming. From Italy, we have the Verona Academy, a very strong academy from Italy. Look, if you want to compare standards of rugby in terms of South Africa and Italy, it's just not there. But still, Verona Academy are, one of the top academies in Italy. So I think they will probably be a bit stronger than the Italian All-Stars. The teams the team that arrived in 2018 and 2019. Then what's nice, we're going to see Portugal under 18 in their debut at the tournament. And then the USA Schools 15 make their second appearance. Now, in the first tournament, we had schools from the United States. Obviously, that was a bit lopsided. And then the USA schools obviously weren't that strong last year. Still made a decent account of themselves, but I think they'll be a much better performance this year. From what I've been told, they'll be a hell of a lot stronger than they were last year. And that should be exciting to see. So, what about the schools that are missing? PAARL Boy is obviously a notable absentee, whether that's a political reason or the fact that they're touring Ireland or there's culture clashes, who knows what the story is. Glenwood's not going to be there. They've chosen to attend the Grey House Festival in Port Elizabeth. Very disappointing. Would have loved to have seen Glenwood at this festival. They've got some exciting talent in their team. Paul Jim and Boerland Lundberg, they're going to be competing at the Noord site. And obviously, with the PAARL schools not there, there's a huge gap. Paul Jim are contenders for number 1 this season. They're going to have one hell of a team this year. I'm going to be releasing a season preview probably next week. And I think that will just show you how strong they're going to be this year. They very much are contenders for the number 1 ranking this year. But, if we think about it and we look at it a bit more closely, maybe having lower tier schools makes the competition a bit more competitive. I'm not taking anything away from some of the schools that are coming. Kes, Maritzburg, these schools are going to be very strong this year. but not at the level of Paul Boys, Glenwood, or Paul Drim, or any of those type of schools. So I think it just adds a bit more spice to the competition. Whereas the first year's festival, we literally had the top South African schools at the festival, barring PAARL, and I mean, there were cricket scores left, right, and centre, and I think that's what the organisers are trying to avoid for the long term. So it should be a bit more competitive. I like the fact that there are international under 18 teams arriving, because I think the best games at the festival in 2018 were the Argentina under 18 team against the PAARL schools. I mean, those were very, very competitive and interesting games. So, in terms of my closing thoughts, personally, I'm a huge fan of the festival. I mean, it kicked off this entire channel. For those of you that are sort of listening for the first time, basically what happened was I was having an argument with a Kiwi buddy about who had the best schools rugby in the world, and then after Grey College's performance against Christchurch Boys in 2018, I had something to brag about, but nowhere on YouTube to watch it. So essentially what happened then, I found the Bok Radio link. I basically created a highlights package. I posted it on this website, completely forgot about it. Next thing I saw the channel at 200 or 300 subscribers. Thought to myself, hey, maybe these guys give a damn about what I have to say. And since then, the channel's grown a bit. And we're building a nice little community. And I think with the plans that I have in place, we'll see a lot more growth in the future. And then hopefully I can stop doing videos through PowerPoint presentations and hire an expert to do this type of thing for me. Now, if one looks at Carrinet's team and the talent behind the brand, because obviously I've done my research, I don't think there's a doubt that the competition is in good hands. I mean, these guys, you should check out their website. All the information is on there. They organize some pretty big festivals, and it's not only rugby, it's other sports as well. And the team behind the Carrinet brand have a lot of experience in sports and sports management and events management and all the rest of it. So I'm very confident about the future of the festival. Now, I think the entire community does wish that the competition would grow in stature. And I think for that, we do need Paul Boys and Carrinet to bury the hatchet. I'm not sure if there is an issue there, guys, but it appears to, the casual observers such as myself and a couple of the people I've spoken to, that there might just be a problem between Paul Boys and Carrinet. And they have to bury the hatchet, like I said, because it's the boys that are losing out. They're losing out against playing international competition, making friendships that are going to last for a long time. So I think that the two parties have to come to an agreement, because I don't think we could ever say in the future, let's say 5 years down the line, you've got Blackrock, St. Kitts, Sedberg, all those top schools coming, and you don't have Paul Boys there. You can't call it the strongest of South Africa against the strongest of the rest of the world, because Paul Boys are an institution. They're a proud institution, and they have to be at these festivals in the future. So, like I said, I hope between the two parties they can work something out, and we can hopefully see Paul Boys at the festival next year, because Paul Boys next year will be absolutely deadly, guys. They're going to have one of the best teams in the country next year. Their under-17 group this year is extremely strong. So it would be terrible for the world not to see this God-given talent on the international stage, so to speak. So, yeah, let's hope they can bury the hatchet and move forward on things. Now, I've spoken about it a lot. Grassroots rugby growth and international competitions is vital for world rugby. We need to grow the game at grassroots level in order to increase its popularity and global reach. It's just a non-negotiable. And a festival like this has all the ingredients to do that. Now, every other sport does it. I mean, you've got soccer tournaments between various youth academies in Europe and around the world. I mean, American junior schools, you're talking about 13-year-olds going to Japan to play baseball against Japanese teams and teams from all over the world. So it's happening. It's been happening for a long time. Rugby has to accept the reality. And then hopefully the key stakeholders in the game will continue the support for such initiatives in the future. I think the more competitions, the more eyes there are in the school game, the better. Now, if this channel focused purely on senior rugby and doing videos and highlights on senior players and reports on senior players and all the rest of it, I'll definitely probably be at tens of thousands of subscribers right now. Definitely, there's no doubt about it. Because if I did a preview on a South Africa New Zealand game, it would probably it used to end up getting 10, 15,000 views without much of an effort. So if I actually really try to market it and stuck to senior rugby, I'd probably have a lot more subscribers. But I don't care about that. What I want is to give exposure to the youth. I want to see the game grow at youth level, and that in itself will translate itself into senior level. Go to America and take a look at how they cover high school basketball, high school football, high school baseball, you name it. There's an entire community around it, and there's a push around it, and that basically helps to grow the game or keep the game at a certain level and a certain level of popularity, and basically prevents external threats like such as soccer, for example, coming through. The Americans have done it well. We'll try and do it well as well. I think that's the entire point. But thanks a lot for watching regardless, guys. I know it's been a while since I've released a sort of video in this format, mainly focusing on highlights and all the rest of it. There will be more videos like this in the future. If you haven't already, please just click the subscribe button. You'll be supporting us a hell of a lot on this channel, and we'll try and bring you some more quality content in the future. Have a fantastic week further, gentlemen. Cheers. Bye.